I don't know what a large language model is, an LLM, ChatGPT. All of these different language models, if you look at them, many of them have the LM in there. A large language model, the reason why I'm showing you this, trust me, I could care less to teach you how this works or why it works or what it is. I'm doing this slide for one reason and one reason only. I want to show you how ChatGPT works and why it's been so frustrating for you sometimes. And when you get this, I'm hoping that you're going to have an aha moment because I've broken it down into the 4 quadrants of an AI chatbot, right? I could call it a large language model. I could call it ChatGPT. But at the end of the day, it's the thing that you talk to and say, who is Ben Franklin? And it responds back to you, right? It's the technology that you're having a conversation. Let's start with the top left. It says wisdom. First of all, a large language model is a genius slowly becoming an all-knowing God. How is this thing trained? Well, the better a language model is, the more wise or the more wisdom that it has. And the way that it learns in this metaphor, by traveling to different parts of the world and living longer, right? If you only lived in Arkansas for 4 years, you're gonna have a very limited world knowledge. But if you live for 1,000 years and you've traveled to every single part of the world, and at the bottom here, you see it says you have a photographic memory with instant recall across multiple domains. And what is a domain? Physics, the STEMs, mathematics, religion, programming, language, any single thing that you could break down and then break down and then break down again. Science has physics, astronomy, or quantum physics, biology, chemistry. All of these different things are what we refer to as domain. When you hear that a new language model came out, it'll say something like this: featuring 7 billion parameters trained on 800 billion data tokens. Well, what does that really mean? It means 800 billion words, essentially, right? And where do they get this information? Well, they scrape all of Reddit, all of the internet, all of Wikipedia, all of YouTube, and take every transcript for every video that's ever been written on every topic, and they put this into one big, huge brain of text. And then they use, when it says 7 billion parameters, well, what you have to be able to do is you have to put everything in domain. Oh, well, this is programming. And in programming, that's PHP, and that's Python, and that's JavaScript. And in languages, structure of language, verbs and nouns, and we have different languages like Portuguese and French and Spanish. And so it has to map all of those different things. And that's what they call basically creating parameters, because a rat is closer to a mouse than it is a giraffe. But giraffes, rats, and mice are all animals. So it basically creates this architecture. And what is it replicating, folks? What am I getting to? It creates an actual brain like ours. They call them parameters. In our brain, we call them neurotransmitters because they go through neurons. There, they go from electricity from a data center. But 7 billion parameters basically means how many neural connections that it has in its brain. We have more than monkeys and chimps. So when you start hearing this has 30 billion parameters, well, that's like that all-knowing God living for 10 years, for now 50 years. And then you'll hear it was trained on 80 billion or 100 billion or 200 billion parameters, et cetera, et cetera. The parameters are more important than the number of tokens. 800 billion tokens, folks, it really doesn't matter anymore. Now we're going to start getting your uncle's blog. We're starting to get the junk of the internet. There's only so much good quality information. Pretty much there, we're just going to read the rest of that. It's akin to age and wisdom. It's like going from a chimp to a baby to a genius to a god. The more parameters and the more tokens that it's trained on, the wiser it is. Okay, remember, it has a photographic memory, instant recall across multiple domains. The next thing that we're going to go to is over here, and I'm calling this Lenny. And why am I calling this Lenny? Memento, Christopher Nolan's movie. If you like Interstellar, you like Tenet, you like Dunkirk, you like The Dark Knight Rises, you like his latest movie, Oppenheimer, The Prestige, you need to see Memento. It's in my top 5 greatest movies of all time. So let me explain to you what's going on here. So Lenny and Drew Barrymore, both of them cannot form any new memories. They only have memories up until the day they got hit on the head and had an accident. So they remember their entire life and they know everything, but every day that they wake up, as you can see on the bottom, Drew Barrymore, she's married to this person. But she met him after she can't form new memories. Every day she wakes up, her memories reset. So there she is going to bed with Adam Sandler, and the next morning she wakes up and screams because there's a stranger in her bed. Okay, so let's call her Drew. And Lenny is a guy who was a very, very intelligent investigator for an insurance company. And one day his house got robbed by 2 men. They killed his wife and they hit him on the head trying to kill him. When he woke up, he couldn't form any new memories, but he remembers his wife getting her head bashed. So now he's on using his investigative skills to find the murderer of his wife. Every time he gets a note, he writes it down. And then when he gets home, he tattoos it. And when he takes his clothes off, his entire body is covered with tattoos. Every morning he wakes up, he thinks before he saw his wife, he wakes up, he sees himself in the mirror, and he realizes that he's told himself that this is what happened. He has a book that he could read, and he goes and he's looking for the murderer. Here's what happens with Lenny. Very different than Drew Barrymore. Lenny is really like ChatGPT. Lenny can only talk to you for about 3.5 to 4 minutes. If you're talking to Lenny, this scene that I put right here, he's talking to a guy at a motel, and he already has 2 rooms in the motel because the guy wanted to make extra money to see if the guy really can't remember anything. So he just started renting him multiple rooms. And so he comes up to the guy at the counter and he says, "Hi, my name's Lenny." And the guy just looks at him just like this. And he goes, "I have this condition. I can't form any new memories." And then the guy's just looking at him like this. And he goes, "I've told you the story before, haven't I?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, man, it's just so weird. You've been here for 3 weeks. We have this conversation every morning." And so that's the beginning of the movie, and you're realizing Lenny can't form any new memories. But it's so bad that if you're talking to Lenny and you say, "Excuse me, Lenny, I've got to go to the bathroom," and you go to the bathroom, when you come out, Lenny's going to go, "Who are you? What are you doing in my home?" Could you imagine the torture of that? Well, guys, let's go back here. Here we are. ChatGPT, I'm going to open up a chat right now. This is ChatGPT. Every single time you open up a new chat, guess what you just did? You just walked into a room and you're talking to Lenny. Why? Because Lenny has all of the memory, right? ChatGPT has all of its world knowledge. But what just happened is you just hit it over the head and it became Lenny, okay? So let's take a look at what I have right here. They talk about GPT-2, then GPT-3, which had 1,000 tokens, 4,000 tokens. Then they said, oh, we just came out with ChatGPT 3.5, and it has 16,000 tokens. And then there's ChatGPT 4, which means it has a 32,000 token window. What in the world does all this mean? Claude just came out with a 100,000 token window, which means that you can paste in the entirety of The Great Gatsby into the chat and actually have a conversation with it, okay? When you open up a conversation, who is Ben Franklin, okay? What we just did is we just started a conversation with Lenny. Lenny is a genius. He has all of the world's knowledge. He's been trained on all of the information. But the more we start having a conversation, let's read what happens here. Models with more tokens mean they can chat with you longer before their dementia kicks in. I missed the one above it. It's like talking to Lenny or Albert Einstein with dementia. The more tokens that you hear that a platform has simply means that they can chat with you longer before their dementia kicks in. The more text you give it, the less it can remember and the worse it performs. The longer the chat history, the more we start having a conversation here with the chat. And George Washington, it's going to give me a bio on George Washington. If I start asking it, who is the first person I asked you? It's going to say, oh, you asked me about Ben Franklin. If I ask it about the next 10 presidents, even though Franklin wasn't a president, but if I go from Washington to Adams to Jefferson to Jackson and Quincy Adams, all the way down the line, by the time I get to Lincoln, I'm going to say, who's the first person I asked you about? It's going to hallucinate and make something up. You asked me about Napoleon and the Napoleonic Wars. And have you ever had this with ChatGPT? You're like, what are you talking about? We did not have that. Here's the thing. ChatGPT doesn't really know how to say I forgot. So it hallucinates and just makes things up. That's the way that it works. It's like dealing with somebody with dementia. You've ever worked with ChatGPT and you said, I want all of the output to work like this and I want it in bullet format, and then it gives it to you, and then the third time you say, now do it for this, and it just gives you something without the original instruction. You're like, hey, remember, I told you that I wanted everything in bullet points. Oh yes, I'm sorry, it's a large language model, some type of, and it gives it to you. But this time it forgot to make every word in the headline all caps. And you're like, remember, I said all capitalized initial caps on the words and all my bullet points in bullets double space. Oh yes. And then it does it and it messes something else up. What's happening is the instructions that you gave it earlier up, it's now having a Lenny problem. It's been 4 minutes. You went to the bathroom and came back. It doesn't remember this conversation. When you start adding all of this stuff to the ChatGPT, or you give it a blog post and say rewrite it, what you've done is you've just given it more information that's taking up its memory. And as you start typing, it's going to forget things. And you're going to say, why are you making things up? You're just making things up. Well, folks, that's it. That's the second part of a language model, is when you open up something with ChatGPT, it is locked in. And if you wanted to give it all of your works, it can't do that. It needs something called a knowledge base. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Let's talk about the third thing. The more text you give it, the less it can remember and the worse it performs. The longer the chat history, earlier chat goes into a memory hole, the worse it performs and the more it frustrates you. That's the Lenny problem. Number 3 is something called the system prompt. The system prompt, that's where you can fix a role to its personality. Example, act like William Shakespeare, who's always in a bad mood, and answer every prompt in a riddle poem that rhymes. If you add this to the system prompt, it will act like this forever. And I'm going to open a new chat and watch this. We're going to say, act like William Shakespeare, who's always in a bad mood, answer every prompt in a riddle poem that rhymes. Who is Ben Franklin? Okay, so now I'm having a conversation with Lenny. If now I say, who is George Washington? Who is Abraham Lincoln? Who is John Adams? Who is John F. Kennedy? By the time I get to Barack Obama, it's gonna stop making a rhyme, or it's gonna slowly forget what the initial prompt was. How did we get around that? Well, in OpenAI, they created something right here called the system prompt. The system prompt allows us to add something to Lenny's personality before he got hit on the head. That means it's fixed. Once I put this in the system prompt, I can just say, who is Ben Franklin? And I'm in the developer section for OpenAI. And you see it's gonna follow these instructions. But now I can do this for the next 300 years, and it will always give me the same prompt because I've fixed this role to its personality. I've added this to its DNA. When you do it into ChatGPT, you're putting it into the prompt. And the more you have a conversation with it, you're gonna say in about 2 minutes, after you spoke to it 10 times, hey, you're not acting like William Shakespeare, or you're not rhyming. You're supposed to be in a bad mood. Remember, the first thing is the wisdom. How well was it trained? Number 2, what is the token size? The more tokens they say a model has, the longer you can talk to Lenny before he forgets. Does it have a system prompt so that you can fix a personality to it to say, act like a direct response marketer in the style of Dan Kennedy. Make your conversation witty. Write to a target market of digital marketers, the avatar being women, Generation X that are technophobes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those 3 things are here. Now, the knowledge base is where you upload the consciousness of any data set to the language model. I'm going to go to groove.cm official. We're going to go to my live streams in the past, and we're going to find this one here of me right here. See, it's 2 hours and 28 minutes. And I'm going to go to something called YouTube transcript, and I'm going to paste that YouTube URL, and I'm going to get the transcript of that 2 hour and 40 minute webinar. I'm going to copy the transcript, and I'm going to go into ChatGPT, and I'm going to start a new chat. And here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to summarize this webinar. Go, boom, and up. The message is too long. Please reload the conversation and submit something shorter. So then what I do is I have to break it up into 37 different paste, 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 paste. The more you paste, it has more recent memory of your recent paste, and the one that you did 7 times ago, it's already forgotten. It has the Lenny problem. So good luck trying to do anything like this with anything long. So what they've come out with is they've come out with something called a knowledge base, where you could create something as large as you want for it, and you could basically create a knowledge base about every single article in your help desk, or every book that you've ever written. If you're Dr. Joe Vitale and you want to upload your own books and create a knowledge base, you can do that. But you can't do that here. So the last question, does ChatGPT have a knowledge base? And then you could go in to the plugin store, but it's essentially a knowledge base store. And what people have done is they've created all of these paid solutions like Ask a PDF, and you got to create an account, and then it lets you upload a 300-page PDF because it creates a knowledge base for you that you can have a conversation with. They want you to pay for all these different things. There are nearly 1,000 knowledge bases that are here. But how do you upload your knowledge base if you just want to create a knowledge base? Well, you have to become a developer, and you've got to put it into the store, and you've got to make it public for everybody to see. What is somebody to do? Well, introducing Groove.ai, where we have solved the knowledge base problem, the system prompt problem, et cetera, et cetera. So let me show you essentially what a knowledge base is real quick. I'm going to go into something. This is another company that we're going to be doing the same thing later this year. With our knowledge base, you're going to be able to have a conversation with a knowledge base that's called a chatbot. As you can see, every one of my websites that I go to, groove.cm, at the bottom corner right here of every one of these websites, I have a little chat widget. I have it at groove.ai. I have it at the Collective Mastermind, Groove Agency, and Fit Class. And so how does it work? Well, you have to give the knowledge base data. So you simply go like this. You go to the website, and we have the same thing in groove.ai. It says crawl. You put in your website URL, or you submit your sitemap if you have that, and it will literally crawl every single page and say trained, trained, trained. Look at that. 36,000 words here, tokens, but they're words essentially, right? And then I put in my help desk, and then I put in my website, Groove Digital, and every single website that we have at our website, groove.ai, found everything. And so it crawled. It found all of these sites, and when it's done, it said that it found 1.8 million characters that it's trained on. I could also put a Q&A because, Groove's had many pricing over the years. I wanted to know the current pricing. Oh, by the way, just like ours, I'll show you in our interface, you could upload a PDF, a doc, or a text file. And ours, you could even upload an audio file. And if you upload an audio file, it'll transcribe it. So you can create a knowledge base on your information, your podcast, your YouTube videos, anyone else's YouTube videos, etc. You have to tell it how to act. Right here, you see it says, act like a friendly sales rep and a friendly customer support rep for Groove. Refuse to answer anything unrelated to the information. And then you did some more information about, if it asks about my competitors, it's like a chat prompt, right? And then when that's said and done, I go here, I click embed, get this little code, and I put it on my website, and I get this. Now, remember what I said. Refuse to answer anything unrelated to the information. This is important because I want to show you this later. We want to limit its world knowledge. Because if I want to write an article about socialism, but I want to write it from a Marxist socialist point of view, I want to say, refuse to show socialism a bad blah, blah, blah. Now, if I want to do it from a capitalistic point of view, I can say, do not talk about any of the goods of socialism, right? But that's my point here that I'm trying to say. So just like here, I'm going to say, how do you bake a cake? And it says, I'm not sure, but I can definitely help you with any questions about Groove and its features. Can I assist you with that? All right, well, try me. How do I animate a button on the Groove Pages canvas? Well, you should know that because that was trained on. And there it goes. It's going to give us step-by-step information. I can say, is this better than ClickFunnels? Absolutely. Groove offers a powerful, comprehensive platform. It's all in one, etc. What is your pricing? Thank you for your interest in Groove. We have several different plans, etc., etc. Now, I can now go into app.groove.cm, and you'll notice when you click on this little thing over here, we used to send you to this old Zendesk style Help Scout widget where there's articles and everything. Now our users can come right in here, just like this, and say, how do I connect my domain with Namecheap? And I can give it anyone, GoDaddy, anybody. And now my users are getting instant information on how to do it with Groove. It's cut our help desk tickets down by 28%, increased our front end conversions by nearly a couple of percentage points. All right. So our customers are also happier. We're getting a higher customer satisfaction. So that, folks, the only reason why I was showing you that was so that you understand that you can create a knowledge base with Groove.ai. So let's get back to the slides. We're getting very close to the demo, but I wanted you to understand these different things about a knowledge base and a system prompt so that you can see why when you're talking with Lenny, you can't feed it information. You have to give a knowledge base. Let me talk to you about the problems with ChatGPT that you're all aware of. Number one, when you pull up ChatGPT, you've all noticed there's no way to search any of your stuff. If you've ever done this, scroll, scroll, scroll. Did I miss it? Let me go back up, down, scroll. Where in the world was that conversation I had 9 months ago? No. So ChatGPT lacks structured organizational system, making it a challenge to categorize and retrieve specific information or past interactions and conversations efficiently. Number two, it has no sharing features. There's no collaboration. Unlike Groove.ai, which is something like Google Docs, you can't seamlessly share your work with collaborators. And if you wanted to give them access to all of your work, to allow access, you're forced to share your sensitive login information like your email and your password. It also has a disconnected workflow, meaning that when you're working on a chat over here, you also have a Google Doc open over here, and then you've got another Google Doc open over here. And what happens with those Google Docs, guys? You've seen it, right? You go and you take your copy like this and you paste it and you get this. Or you say, give it to me in Markdown with H1 and H2 and bold and make it longer. Okay, so now when you get output with bold, so let me just copy this right here to show you the problem. So if I copy this and I try to paste that into a Google Doc, you get this, right? You've all had that problem. Or if you click paste without formatting, well, you're not getting the formatting. So they think they solved it for us. And I'm going to click this copy to clipboard thing, and I'm going to now paste, and it doesn't translate the Markdown. Google Docs doesn't do that. I'm going to show you a sneak peek of ours. We're going to come to this user interface in just a minute. But what I want to show you is that I can now just simply paste here, and ours handles the Markdown. Okay, but I'm going to show you more of that in just a minute. And so what I mean by having a disconnected workflow is you've got your ChatGPT here, but you're saving everything in a Google Doc. And now if you want to share this Google Doc with your team, they don't get to see the chat that created it. There's no workflow with it. Okay. Lacking integrated document creation means users must juggle between apps, shifting from Google Docs to organize their work. This not only disrupts the flow, but also detaches projects from their context, making it cumbersome to resume and organize ongoing tasks efficiently. Copy paste limitations, which I just showed you. There's no knowledge base, so you can't load up tons of different information. And folks, here is the biggest one. Prompt engineering required without a settings drop down for prompts, like I'm going to show you in Groove.ai. Users need to be prompt engineering specialists. One of the biggest things that's exploding right now, 16 different hacks that you have. To become a prompt engineering specialist is like becoming a copywriter. You have to know to say things like, act like a world-class direct response copywriter, writing in the style of John Caples, to a target audience of this, the goal of this. Your output should be blah, 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 with a tone like this and a style like this and all of these different things. Please remember to use a problem, agitate, solve framework, all these different things. And if you don't know that, folks, you're going to get very boring, banal copy. And the worst part about it is you're not going to know that your copy sucks. You're not going to know that Google's going to hate your blog. It looks like a bunch of text and you say this is good and you send it out and you're going to be, hey, we're using ChatGPT, but our open rates actually went down. Yep. Prompt engineering is required. So Content Copilot, which is the app inside of Groove.ai, our first app that we're releasing, that you get access to September 5th, fixes all of this and more. When you look at the front of our website at Groove.ai, all of that copy was written using the AI power behind Groove.ai. It wrote our registration page copy. It wrote our headlines. It wrote all of our bullets. It created websites for us like fitclass.com. Every single piece of communication that we have with you was created with Groove.ai and the technology of artificial intelligence. Every single email you're getting, every swipe email, the information and the structure of these slides, everything was done using that. So you show them Groove.ai and everybody loses their minds. I'm hoping you feel the same way as the Joker, because that's exactly what he said to me when I had him on a private demo yesterday. Shout out to Heath Ledger. All right, are you ready